Howdy folks, welcome back to Doing Brew. Today we're going to be working on a new Craftsman surround install around the new entry door that I installed in my last video. Now this Craftsman style surround is an exact match to other surrounds you've seen me do previously for the mini mudroom and also for the slider project that I've done. So that when I'm done with the remodel of the house, all of the door and window surrounds will match. In case this is the first one of my videos that you've seen regarding a Craftsman surround, let me break down the pieces and parts of this surround so you'll have a good idea of what's coming in the video. First of all, I have the jamb boards and the jamb facings, but then on top of it, and really what is the rock star of this project, is the entablature. Now the entablature is made from basically 4 different components. It's the base, which is the small bead board across the bottom, the frieze, which is a large open field board, and then the cornice way up on top, which is set off by nice crown molding. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we have to do is measure out the width of our doorway so we can cut that header board out. And it looks like our jamb is about 33 7/8 inches wide by about 4 3/16 of an inch deep. So let's head on out to the workshop. We'll make some cuts. Next, we'll rip this board down to the 4 3/16 inches wide, and then I'm going to resaw the board. I want to have a 1/8 inch reveal all the way around the door jamb. But the top of the jamb, the header, is a little bit tight. I wouldn't be able to put a 3/4 inch board there, so I'm going to cut it down to 1/4 of an inch wide by resawing it here on the table saw. Now, you might think that board's going to be a little bit flimsy, and maybe it would be. I don't think that's going to be a problem because you see that that 2x4 up there on the header, the 1/4 inch facing board is going to go right up against that. Should be plenty strong. All right, now I'm going to measure for the left door jamb. It looks like this one's coming out to 4 3/8 deep by about 81 1/2. Let's go ahead back out to the shop. We'll make those cuts. No need to resaw this time. Now that I've got that board cut, I want to mark the back and the top, just so I know where everything goes later on down the road with the project. Then I'm going to go ahead and give it a finish sanding. Much easier to do this now outside and laying it flat than after it's assembled. Okay, now I'm just doing a quick dry fit to make sure everything goes together nicely. And it looks like things fit together pretty well. So now I'm going to lay all this down flat on the floor, again, just for ease of work. I'm going to go ahead and mark some reference lines just so I know where to put the glue. I want to minimize the squeeze out as much as possible just to prevent it from being too much cleanup. And now we'll go ahead and apply our glue. And I like Tight Bond. In this case, I'm using Tight Bond 2 because it's specifically formulated to be used in areas where there might be a little bit of moisture present. And I'm thinking cold temperatures in the wintertime, warm air inside. There might be a possibility of some condensation building up. So better be safe than sorry using a glue that's appropriate for contact with water. Okay, now that we've got our jamb assembled, we're going to just give it one more dry fit here. See how things fit together, and it fits together pretty nicely. There are a couple of areas where there are some voids, and I don't want to have any voids behind the jamb, even though they're 3/4 inch board. So it'd be perfectly okay to leave it as is, but I want to make sure that if you knock on it, it's got a nice solid sound to it. Plus, by putting the shims behind the jambs, It'll ensure that it stays square and plumb through the full assembly process. Going to the Wonder Dog, stop by to make sure that I was installing everything to a standard. Appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and clamp the shims in place and just let the glue dry up. No need for nails. Now, my drywallers left the drywall here just a little bit proud, which is not uncommon. I'm going to use a drywall rasp just to make sure that it's nice and flush there where the drywall meets the stud jamb. And as always, do a little cleanup before we start putting things together. Okay, now we have the drywall sanded flush with the stud jamb and our finish jamb setting up with the glue. What we're going to start working on now is basically the rails and stiles, the facing that goes on the jamb itself. So let's go ahead and start cutting those out, and then we're going to lift the whole thing up in one piece and put it into place. Okay, and we'll measure out for that facing board. It looks like it's going to work out to about 81 1/4. And that'll be 2 simple straight cuts on the miter saw. And of course I'll do the finish sanding before I bring it in. Now I want to point out that I made a gauge block, which you might have seen me use before, and that works out to 1/8 of an inch cut. And the way I'm going to use that block is run it down the facing board as I attach it, and that'll ensure that I maintain a nice 1/8 inch reveal all the way down the facing board, which is what I'm looking for. Now it's just a relatively simple process of going down the length of that facing board and attaching it with my crown staples. And of course I'll use that gauge to ensure I maintain that 1/8 inch reveal all the way down the full run. I like 1/8 of an inch because it's subtle and it just provides a nice shadow line, which adds a little bit of depth to your woodwork. And as always, use a wet paper towel to clean up that excess glue. And we'll go through the same process to apply the right side facing. Relatively simple to do. Apply your glue, staples, and use your 1/8 of an inch gauge to make sure you maintain that consistent reveal. Okay, now we need to measure out for our entablature base. So it looks like 41 3/4, and then we want to add a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to add just a little more because I want about a 1/4 inch overhang on the left and right side on that bead board, my entablature base. We'll go ahead out to the miter saw, and again it's 2 simple straight cuts. And next I've set up my router with an 1/8 inch roundover bit, and it's got that ball bearing guide on it to ensure that it makes a nice straight cut. And with my router on the table, I'm just going to hold it stable and feed the woodwork through, kind of like I had a router table, although I don't, but I need to build one. So we'll get a nice 1/8 inch round over on the top and bottom sides of our entablature base, and then of course give it a good final sanding before we bring it back into the house. And working with our assembly still on the floor, I'm going to apply a bead of glue to the left and right jambs. I provided a lineup line there, a 1/4 inch in. That'll ensure I get a good 1/4 inch reveal on both the left and right sides. Now I want to make sure that it's flush with the back, because I don't want this bead board to push my whole assembly out from the wall and provide a large gap there along the top side of the jamb. A couple of nails is all it takes, and then it's about time to set her up into place. This is one final dry fit, and I want to put some reference lines on the wall so I know where to apply my liquid nails. So we'll remove it one last time, put in a healthy application of liquid nails on the wall as well as the stud jamb. And the header, and once we're ready, we'll pick the assembly up one final time, set it into place, and using the crown stapler, we'll secure it in place. I'm putting the majority of my staples down the inside of the jamb, just so I don't have too many there on the facing board. Even though with the techniques that you'll see in the how to paint trim work video, you're able to make those nail holes disappear nearly completely. Okay, and with that step complete, now it's time to measure for our freeze board, the most prominent feature on the entoplature, and this needs to be cut to the exact same width as your jamb facings. So for my project, that is 41 3/4, and again, just 2 simple straight cuts out on the saw, finish sand outside, bring in our finished product, and liquid nails on the wall, and wood glue where the freeze meets the entoplature base. And set it into place, give it a little wiggle to spread that glue out, and then we'll get ready to nail it in place. Now, it's really important to make sure that your facing board, the edge of your facing board, lines up exactly with the edge of your freeze. Okay, and then once you're happy with the alignment, again, we're gonna staple her in place with our crown staples. Now I'm gonna put a whole mess of crown staples across the top because that is gonna be covered by our crown molding, and then just a few across the bottom, which will fill and disappear completely in the finishing process. The next step is to cut out our cornice board, the very top board of the entoplature, and this again is 2 very simple straight cuts. Now, our freeze board is 41 3/4 inches wide. I want to cut this board 5 inches longer in total to give me 2.5 inches of extension on the left and right side. That will ensure that after the crown molding goes on, I have the same underside reveal of the cornice on the front and left and right sides of the top of my entablature. So I put a reference point there at 2.5 inches. That will ensure that I get a good 2.5 inch overhang on both sides. Applied my wood glue. And I'll put in just 2 crown staples initially, and then I'll check to make sure I've got a 2.5 inch overhang on both the left and right sides. Looks pretty good. And now I'll finish out with my crown staples across the top. And now it's time to measure for our crown molding. Now I've already cut a 45-degree cut on the right side. So I'll set it into place here temporarily, and I'll mark. I try not to measure too much. I'll mark my cut point. I'll make sure I put the right angle. Now the tricky part with doing crown moldings, guys, is you have to cut it upside down and backwards. And after you do a couple of crown molding installations, that'll actually start to make sense to you. So we'll make our cut, ensure that it fits, apply the glue, set it into place, and hit it again with the crown stapler. Now I still have to cut my left and right returns, but I want to make sure that I clean up that wood glue immediately. Even after a few minutes, that stuff sets up and really becomes a problem for you in the finish process. So I'll use my putty knife there to get the majority off, and then again a wet paper towel to clean that up. And we're back out to the saw. Now I have my 45-degree angle already cut, and I know that I need 3/4 of an inch because my freeze board is 3/4 of an inch thick. So we'll go ahead and make that cut. Take it inside, give it a dry fit. And sure enough, that looks about as good as it's gonna look. Now, again, glue on everywhere where wood meets wood. We'll set it into place. Hold my breath when I put one crown staple in to hope it doesn't split on me. And it looks pretty good. Now, we need to do the left return. Same process, do that 45-degree cut. Measure out 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to make this cut and it's going to fly into the backyard. I'll go search for it with a flashlight in a minute. And the dry fit looked good. We're going to go ahead and apply glue. And hit it with one crown staple, and that completes this project, with the exception of doing all the finish work and painting. Okay folks, I'm going to go through this phase of the project really quickly. Please check out my painting trim work video. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. But it covers everything from filling all the nail holes, sanding, priming, and applying your top coat for a very professional, completed project. That'll look beautiful and you'll be very proud of. Okay folks, that finishes up our craftsman-style surround on our new entry door. Sure hope you enjoyed the project. I enjoyed making it for you. And hey, a big shout out to all my new subscribers. I've gotten a ton of new subscribers lately, and that sure does keep me motivated to keep making more videos for you. And speaking of which, I still have a whole lot of home improvement stuff to do, but honestly, I'm kind of getting tired of it. So in the springtime, look forward to Brew bringing you a bunch of fun new projects, like maybe cornhole, the wine caddy that I've wanted to build for a few months now. I want to make a dog food tray where you put your dog bowls to keep all the mess in one place, and similar projects that maybe you might find useful as well. Well, hey, thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you tackle a project like this, best of luck to you. I know you can do it. If you have any questions at all about how to do a project like this, just leave them in the comments or email me directly at doandbrew@gmail.com. Best of luck to you folks. We'll see you back here next time on Do and Brew.